Hi there, I'm DG Valdron. This is my attic. Welcome. I'm a writer and I also review things and I make weird, snarky comments about stuff. And sometimes, once in a while, I say something intelligent. Wait for it. Anyway, we're here today to talk about why the DC cinematic universe failed because, it's gone. It's come, it's gone, and nothing of value was lost. Isn't that a shame? So, why? Why did it fail? Well, I'm going to tell you something important about storytelling. Maybe you might want to write this down. Um, it should be obvious, but a lot of people in Hollywood and film and television just seem to be missing that point. And it is this: what comes next has to be more interesting than what came before. Okay, that doesn't sound like rocket science, but um, that's the point. That's like 90% of storytelling. You have to make sure that whatever you're doing, you have to keep raising the stakes. You have to keep making it more interesting. You have to keep the audience. Don't just do something and then tell your readers, "Oh yeah, go have a coffee. We're just going to do some boring bits now." No, that does not work. You have to keep it going. You need to build. You need to keep building. So, what did the DC Cinematic Universe do? They blew it. Okay, look at the start. Man of Steel. Okay, this is where it all begins. This is the starting gate. They do two things, and they do them both wrong. The first thing is they do an origin story for Superman. They do an origin story for Superman. He is the most popular fictional character on the planet. Look, if you were to go to Somalia and you were to go out into the Ogaden Desert and you were to walk for days and days and days until finally you found some goat herder who had never actually seen a white person. They'd heard of white people, but they'd never seen one. And you could go up to that goat herder and say, "Hey, can you tell me the story about Superman?" He'll say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, a guy from another planet, home blew up, came here, crashed, raised by farmers, put in a suit, goes around doing good." I mean, literally, it is the most popular, the most famous superhero ever. And Zack Snyder wastes a whole big chunk of the movie telling the story again. It's like, why? Why? I mean, look, sometimes you have to tell the story. If it's a less famous, less successful superhero, like, say, Aquaman or Iron Man or Captain America, yeah, that's worthwhile. Go ahead, do it. But I'll tell you something with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? When they introduced Spider Man, who was after Superman and Batman the most successful ever, they didn't even bother with an origin story. They just brought him out and said, "Hey, here's Spider Man." Okay, so there you go. The first thing Zack Snyder did is he wasted about half his movie. And then what does he do? Well, he gives a story where an alien race comes to Earth, says, "Hey, nice real estate, we're going to take it." They proceed to try and terraform the planet, exterminate the human race. Superman has to fight them. It's knockdown, drag out, takes everything he has, but he wins. Okay, and that blew it. Because where do you go from there? I mean, those are the big stakes. You can't get bigger than that, really. Um, Everything else in the DC cinematic universe was a step down from there. What did they do next? Batman versus Superman. Oh, ho hum, Batman is cranky. Well, that's it. Okay. And Lex Luthor is annoying. There's no stakes there. It was a bun fight between two superheroes. That's nowhere near Man of Steel. Um, and then you had, some Wonder Woman having an origin story. That was kind of okay. You had the Flash taking forever to get his movie out, which is basically a very personal story. You have Aquaman drowning in CGI. You have some other stuff going on, but really, it's all small stories that don't really have that same epic scope, you know. And finally, you know, you go to Justice League. And what's Justice League? I'll tell you. Justice League is a story about aliens coming to Earth, looking around, saying, hey, nice real estate, we'll take it, and proceeding to try and terraform the place and exterminate the human race. It's the same damn plot as Man of Steel, except that there are more characters, there's more special effects, and the aliens are weaker and punkier. Because the minute Superman shows up, he starts kicking them all over the place. And really, he was getting his butt kicked in Man of Steel, and he really had to work for it. But here, it's the same goddamn story, just dumber. Really, this is the entire arc. So all they did was they repeated themselves, but repeated themselves with a noisier, uh, more colorful, but ultimately less evocative story, less profound. What's his name? Steppenwolf and all his parademons. They're not a candle. They're not like they wouldn't have been a challenge to General Zod and his Kryptonians. General Zod and his Kryptonians could kick mountains around, and the parademons and Steppenwolf are just creeps who are struggling and really no match. So, really, this is the problem with the DC Cinematic Universe. They shot their bolt on their first movie and they left themselves with nowhere to go. They left themselves with no higher stakes. Now, compare this with Marvel. Marvel starts off, and they started off low. Hulk was a Jekyll and Hyde story. Iron Man? Iron Man is basically toxic office politics. It's Tony Stark and his partner having a falling out, and Tony Stark, slowly learning to be a slightly better human being. Thor is about a jock growing up. Captain America is a historical story set in World War II. These were all relatively small stories, all with relatively confined, distinctive characters, distinctive stakes, and they allowed it to build up organically and properly. The stakes keep growing, and they wait a dozen movies to get to the actual alien invasion when, the planet is at stake. And then after that, they keep building it up until by the time of Infinity War and Endgame, the stakes are literally half the universe, or the entire universe. And notice the stakes in Endgame and Infinity War. In Infinity War, half the universe is killed off by Thanos. Then, in Endgame, they up the ante, and suddenly Thanos is just about to prepare to end the entire universe. Everything gone. Not just half, all. They've done almost the impossible. They've got this great big cosmic story, and they have successfully taken this cosmic story where half the universe is killed, and they escalate it to the point where everything is at stake. Well, that's great. In Man of Steel, the Justice League, we have really strong, dangerous aliens that are coming here to wipe out the human race and take over the planet. And the successor movie, Justice League, has a more ineffectual, more colorful, less competent, less powerful race of aliens coming here to try and take over the planet with, more resistance. The DC Cinematic Universe basically forgot the first basic rule of storytelling, which is that what comes later has to be more interesting than what came before. They kept failing to raise the stakes. They left themselves with nowhere to go. And so after Man of Steel, all they could do was basically flounder like a drunk in a bathtub, with no purpose, no aim, no direction, because they'd already told their big story. Well, it's all downhill. Honestly, I'm surprised that the DC Cinematic Universe lasted as long as it did. And I'm sorry to say that I think it was a botch from the start. Man of Steel wasn't the beginning, it was the end. And they just never realized that. I guess the moral of the story is Zack Snyder can't tell the story to save his life.